Hi, this is Henry Frank. Started the San Diego Code School program on June 1st. I'm on week 4 out of the 12. Well, kind of week 5. I'm doing this a couple days late. The full stack JavaScript course. I am feeling at full mental capacity. That's for sure. This week, I've begun working with React, and it's no joke. It's interesting. Seems really useful. But it's working with JavaScript is sort of a whole different structure. The biggest challenge I'm facing this week, understanding that structure. First couple projects were difficult, but pretty doable. They just used a single React component, and working within it, figuring out how to set state and that kind of stuff. And the current project that I am struggling my way through right now is using multiple React components, and the trick of passing values, properties, information from one React component to another in a way that it can make use of it, or function within one can use information captured in another is that's the challenge. That's my biggest challenge so far this week. I'm getting there. I'm working on it. React's documentation, other people's examples online are helpful. I'm getting closer. I'm able to overcome that challenge. Well, I'm halfway there. Well, I feel like once I overcome it, figure it out one time, that should be really helpful. I should be able to repeat that as needed throughout the rest of this project once I kind of figure out all the structure of it the first time. That's my hope. Most important new thing I learned this week. Well, React in general. I have a feeling it's something that I'll be using quite a bit of. It seems extremely useful, super practical, very fast, very useful. I figured that thing out figuring it out as I go. Just keeping my hands on a keyboard, putting in time, checking out lots of examples, reading through the documentation. All that stuff's all that stuff is helpful. All that stuff's useful. I'm getting there. So far, I've noticed a pattern where for the first, the curriculum's kind of broken up into weeks, and for the first, 2 or 3 days, I'm generally more frustrated and kind of don't know what's going on, and I, don't enjoy the section. I certainly found that to be the case with Node and some of the other ones, but later in the week, as I'm sort of wrapping my head around the concepts and understanding, what it is, how it works, I start to enjoy stuff a little more. So I think I'm kind of still on the cusp of that turning point with React. I certainly am understanding it a little better than I did at first. At first, I sort of found it confusing. It's frustrating to be confused, and it's not that much fun to have everything be over your head and not understand it. But as I'm starting to figure it out, I am starting to enjoy this a little more. I'm noticing sort of the patterns of how you set up components. You have a constructor, some functions, a render. Once I understand a little better how to have components work with each other, I think I'll be off to the races at that point, hopefully, with my understanding of it and ability to work with it. But I'm almost there. Once I figure out a couple things here, I should be able to work with it a lot more, and then I think most of the other sections and things we've worked with, I will enjoy it more once it's not quite so overwhelming. The advice I have for anyone learning this topic is stick with it. Like I was just saying, I've found nearly every subject we've covered extremely frustrating at first. I think if I wasn't in a class and wasn't trying to keep up with a curriculum, and if I didn't have other people I was working through it with, I could easily see not sticking with it or trying to pick a different language or framework or something, trying to move past it instead of sitting in that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing and working through it. And not that I've mastered any of the sections we've gone through, but just sitting in that uncomfortable period, if I just keep at it for a couple hours a day and don't let up, I do start to crack it, and I do start to understand it more. So yeah, my advice would be stick with it, even when it's uncomfortable. And as it starts to be, as you start to understand it more, it's certainly less uncomfortable. And I'm finding I enjoy working with nearly all the languages, all the frameworks and things we've been using. I'll enjoy them once I start to understand it more, and once I'm able to think of something I want to happen and make it happen. That feels good. Thinking of something I want to happen and just having to endlessly Google, is it possible? Can you do that? How would you do it? How have people, how can I apply it? That's not as much fun, but getting there. Getting there. Talk to you in a couple days. I'll still be working on React then. Hopefully I'll sound a little more confident.